Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Untraditional Industries. We are joined by a very special guest today. We have Jim Schnorr with Wendt USA. I appreciate you joining us.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. So this is a newer series for us. You know, we bring on guests, people that are involved, leaders in businesses that are in, somewhat traditional industries, and talk about, your untraditional story and tell us about yourself a little bit. So, for anyone watching that doesn't know who you are, give us a little background, tell us who you are.
Wendt USA, we are an offshoot of a German company located in central Germany, very near the city of Cologne. We're the U.S. office responsible for the U.S. and Canadian markets. So our primary focus is, as I said, industrial abrasives, heavily into manufacturing and metalworking. And the European market is fairly mature, and we see the United States as being and Canada as well, as being a huge opportunity for advancement and improvement of our company.
Cool. And you're first employee, right?
First employee. I actually began as a customer, working for a customer of Wendt. Oh. We're a privately held, family-owned company in Germany, and I was importing products from them, and as it had happened probably 3 times in their history, their customer decided we want to get into this manufacturing process ourselves. So they would get a company up to a certain level, and they would say, great, now we want to take it. So all of our market presence would just decrease immediately. After the 3rd time, we said, let's set up our own operations so we're not always being held hostage. Mm-hmm. Part of our problem, part of our challenge at the time was, historically, our company had sold and put other people's names on the product. So we would sell to power tool manufacturers, mm-hmm. other abrasive manufacturers, and always put their brand, their name on it, so nobody knew who we were. Mm-hmm. When we made the decision to sell into the United States market and create our own company, what we decided was to focus on promoting our own brand, and that would become our biggest challenge, because we're going from a very small, unknown commodity. How do we get ourselves recognized?
Yeah, it's fate, I think, that brought us. Our name is Arbeit, and we're part, it's a German name.
German name.
German company.
Absolutely.
There we go. That was our in.
Yeah.
So based on that, I just have to ask a question kind of off script here. Have you ever been to Germany yourself?
Yes. I usually go there every 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going there on February 26th.
Ooh, awesome.
And now the only thing is I'm looking at coronavirus and saying,
oh boy,
what a challenge this will be.
Yeah. Hopefully they have it kind of taken down a little bit by then, but
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
What part, where are you going to?
It's the International Hardware Show is held every 2 years in Cologne. So it's about 45 minutes from our factory. Okay. We've been representing, we've had a booth there for probably since 2002. So as their U.S. contingent, a couple of us will go over and help staff the booth and have meetings and have a little German beer.
Fun.
There you go. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Too bad the conference didn't line up with Oktoberfest or something.
Yes.
We should have had Steins out for this.
Yeah.
That would be great. All right, so back to business here. All right. So what problem were you looking to solve with your business?
As I touched upon earlier, the problem for us was just having continuity in the U.S. market. If you look at the European market, the U.S. market, they're roughly the same in terms of economy, mm-hmm. Or I should say economic power. So we had no recognition here. Every time we would kind of chip away and kind of think we had a partner, it would evaporate. So our challenge was, in setting up our own entity, how do we come into the market? How do we establish our own foothold and gradually create our own customer base where they know us, they know who we are. And that's, since we're not doing it on a local, the Buffalo, Western New York area, trying to do it on the entire country kind of could be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, and there's different ways you can do it. I mean, you look at advertising dollars. Where do you advertise? They're industrial abrasives. Mm-hmm. Time magazine, you're not going to go into or radio ads. You're not going to get the recognition doing that because you're only catching such a small part of the audience with your feature.
Yeah, it's interesting bringing that up is because, I mean, one of our biggest products here is calling software for like debt collection industry.
Yes.
And so it's you saying like, yeah, you can't use these traditional methods because you can't reach, your audience. Like, we feel that, and that's part of the reason why we want to do this show in the beginning is, we're like an untraditional industry kind of, we're a traditional industry software company, but kind of like a different, unique thing. And
Right.
But yeah.
And you've got to make your mark. You've got to somehow get yourself recognized, get attention. How do you separate yourself from everybody else? Because there's so much white noise out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So when you guys, started transitioning into this market, I mean, you've been there since the beginning. So what are some of the risks that went along with that? I mean,
One of the greatest risks we found, or I should say, I wouldn't even call it a risk as much as a challenge, is with our headquarters, our factory in Germany, our production is in Germany. And everything for the U.S. market, they do a standard program, everything's metric sizes. So to come to the U.S. market, we had to identify what the fractional sizes were, what the common items were, and hope for the best. But we have a 8 to 10 week manufacturing lead time. Then we end up with another 4 weeks shipping by sea container. So for us, as a company just coming out of the box with no sale, or I should say very limited sales history, we had to immediately start planning 3 to 4 months ahead. What do we need inventory for? And there's no magic crystal, there's no magic mirror to look into and say, what do I think I need?
yeah.
It meant hoping for the best and a lot of air freight shipments at the outset. So it was a very expensive venture to get that going.
Yeah, trying to project what you're going to do is like always a challenge.
Exactly.
Just a shot in the dark.
It is. And now, I mean, 20 years ago, it was bad. It's even worse now when you try to do that, because now we've entered the age of Amazon and everybody is used to 2-day shipping. And it began first in everybody's personal life. Now it's begun to creep into business too, where catalog houses, online shopping, everybody wants product immediately.
Yeah.
And if you tell them it's even a 3-week lead time, they hang up and they just start calling the next person. There's not necessarily a lot of loyalty. Everybody just wants the immediate fulfillment of their order because we're so used to it. We've become so used to it.
Yeah.
In that way. So that was a challenge. That was really a challenge for us at the outset. I know we're focusing on local businesses, and I don't know if you've seen it from other companies that might come in from overseas that set up. Another challenge that I didn't anticipate at the outset, but it became apparent in the first 2 years was we're a European company. And what I learned kind of indirectly, but you could just pick up on the signals that people were giving you is in the U.S. market, customers, distributors, dealers, they've become accustomed to European companies coming in, setting up a business, and then saying, well, we weren't profitable in 2 years, so now we've pulled it, and they stop. And so you'd get people hooked onto a product, or what they would find, they'd be hooked onto a product, they'd love it, they'd start selling it, and all of a sudden their supplier would vanish overnight, and they would just close the doors. So we found that there was a growth period where people were saying, are you here for the long run? Are you here for the long run? And they were testing us. They were waiting to see, were we going to be resilient? Were we going to get past that probably 2 to 4 year period where most European companies would just pack up the ship and say, it didn't go as we planned. And many times that's self-inflicted because they try to put on their own expectations and their own business models onto the U.S. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Did you do anything proactively, like try and build that trust back, or how did you guys kind of get through that?
Honestly, we just had to weather the storm.
Yeah.
Just
kind of prove it to them.
It was funny because we sell commodity products that nearly anybody uses, but the opportunities for the first 2 or 3 years were very strange requests that essentially nobody could do. Even the biggest players in the industry could not do. So we were getting kind of tested with, well, can you do this? If you can do this, then maybe we'll give you a shot. We would do our best to try to do it, but it was kind of like you were given challenges that,
Yeah.
puzzles that you couldn't solve, and it was interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting. But I think to your question is what we tried to do at least was tried to at least create the impression that you were a reputable company, that you were trustworthy. And
Yeah.
one of the challenges there, I shouldn't say challenges, one of the temptations when you're trying to get something started at the outset in a new business is create a big splash. In our industry, typically what had happened is people would come out and say, here's a really low price. We want to sell at really low prices. That's how we're going to get the attention. And they would come in and buy market share. We resisted that, and that was sometimes difficult because we wanted that splash, but we knew that as soon as we started dropping pricing on our products, it's always difficult to get those prices back up. And probably more risky for us, or that we felt, was if you start selling on price at the outset, your reputation they've created as you're a price seller. You're here,
Yeah.
you're wheeling and dealing, you're not really trustworthy, you're here to sell on price, you want to make the quick score and then leave. And we knew that whatever image, whatever impression we created in the market in those first 2 years was going to stick with us for decades to come. So that for us was kind of a challenge to look at.
Yeah, and I mean, on the selling on price, and then you're attracting that type of customer, who
Exactly.
at the drop of a dime gets a cheaper price, they're gone.
There's very little loyalty when you do
Yeah.
that. I mean, the old adage, the business you get very quickly and on price, you lose very quickly and on price too.
Yep.
It's not long term. We've been looking long term from the outset. So for us, our strategy with our German roots was focus on quality. Everybody knows, and you think BMW, Mercedes, the cars, Audi, it's good quality, and it's respected. So that was our pitch.
Yeah.
We came out and we said we're not the cheapest, but we're bringing you value, we're delivering performance, and that for us was probably the best strategy we could undertake and build upon that. It's funny, over the past 20 years I've traveled around the country. I've gone into many union shops, manufacturing, early sales calls. You would meet in the union shop, and the foreman would come out and say, well, we don't like cheap imports. We don't like imports. That drives our business out. But we do love German quality.
Yeah.
So even at that level, the respect was there that it represented something good and favorable, and it wasn't seen as a threat to the American workers. And eventually, that's who's using our products. So
It seems like the one import that people are okay with is German, because it's just got that. Yeah.
it does. It's
German
kind of got that
engineering,
respect, that
Yeah.
mentality that comes with it, and people certainly are threatened by it, and they know that it's not being sold on price.
Right.
So they're not undercutting. They've carved their own niche out there.
Right.
Good. Very good. Very good. All right. So how do you define success then?
That's a good question. I've kind of thought about that one. I mean, the obvious is sales growth and profitability, but it goes beyond that. I think for us, success is being given the opportunity from a potential customer to come in and present your products, to at least make that first impression, and really being given maybe that test, that opportunity to say, okay, everything sounds good. Let's see when the rubber hits the road, if you can back it up. If we reach that point, we're very confident that we can move to the next level and say, okay, this is good. You do have a good quality product.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I mean, you guys have 20 years. Obviously, you've been open. Maybe longer than 20 years. The company is.
The company was founded in 1971.
Was there, after you've been there, was there a point where you're like, I know this is like where you knew kind of it's been successful? Is there a turning point, or?
I would say I always knew it was going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I just had the confidence, and knowing the ownership, knowing that they were reputable people, individually, personally, that gave me the confidence, and I knew that the quality was actually there. The only question became, how long? How long is this going to take? How long is it going to take to again, it goes back to the challenge of how do you get recognized?
Right.
How do people get to know you? There were a lot of years at trade shows, standing there in aisles and and feeling like you're not doing anything or you're not accomplishing anything, that you're just kind of a spectator.
Right.
And maybe 5 to 6 years into it, then the people would start coming to you and saying, oh, I remember you from last year. You had product XYZ, you had this. Then you saw the payoff. Now people were starting to draw the connection between it.
Right.
So, it's little signs like that did it for us, or that we kind of knew we were on the right path, and that's the way we had to hold.
That's good. And then, so talking about challenges, and, you mentioned a bunch that you guys, when you were starting, those
Yes.
challenges, have they changed? Have they evolved to something new now? Like today, what are the challenges you face? Are they similar? Are they different?
I know one of the challenges that we are going to have to face, and we're going to have to watch, and it's for me, it's kind of it's something maybe a little where I'm kind of cautious about, is the advent of the living wage that the state has pushed through, and we're lagging behind where it is in New York City, but there's a lot of our products in our industry that are not made automated. There's still a lot of manual labor
Right.
being done in these products, that you can't find a machine that can make some of these products, or even just packaging, things like that, where it's going to be a challenge to say, how can you take a company that's doing manufacturing where it's a labor-intensive product, you can't always recover those prices. We know we can't compete with Chinese prices, but at the same point, in New York, pushing that $15 wage, sometimes you can't get that out of the product. And then does it mean that we would close shop and not work, or not do that job anymore, or lay people off? No, but it does limit us in some of our opportunities, where we look at certain products, like we can begin to build those here in Buffalo, but chances are they won't be able to survive. We won't be able to be cost effective in that way.
Yeah, some things just won't make sense if it costs X to make.
Right.
So.
Exactly, and even though I think we do a good job of, with our salary structure, if the base minimum is $15, well, then the people that have been with you for 2 or 3 years,
Right.
obviously are going to expect something more than that.
Yeah.
It does push it, and we see some of the data coming out of, like, I think Oregon and on the West Coast, Portland, where they're seeing that, where it just kind of drives some of the viability out of business.
Right.
And then when you're competing with not even just offshore, but maybe a southern state where they don't have this, or 2 states away where they've got different labor regulations. Yeah, it's a challenge. It is a challenge for us.
Are there any, if you can share, like, what, I guess, strategies are you kind of doing to combat that? Are you just looking at what you're doing and making sure it makes sense? Is there other, are you looking into things like automation maybe, or?
We do have some automation. One thing that we did do as a company when we opened up in 2000, the original intent was we were always going to serve as more of a warehouse for our German manufacturing arm. They would build the products, we would bring them here, and we would distribute them. As I said before, that's a challenge, because you're always trying to plan ahead, and you're trying to plan your resources, and inevitably you've got 10,000 pieces of item A on your shelf, but somebody wants a different variant of it, and that's what they want immediately, and you can't overcome that. In 2005, we saw the way the global economy was going with the euro and becoming very, very strong. We actually invested in equipment. We began manufacturing in Buffalo. So that was something a change we made that we were not expecting to do. It wasn't in our game plan, but just the way the global economy was shifting, we saw the need, the opportunity, make the investment, start building one of our key products, our core products here in Western New York. And not only did that allow us to be more responsive, it also allowed us to reduce our inventory, because now we could make within a matter of a few days something that we would take 3 months ahead to get. And we would have kind of the basic components. We could change it up. We could make different variants of it relatively easily without having to probably triple our warehouse space.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, along the way, if any, what are some mistakes that you've made?
Oh, there's many mistakes. Advertising dollars, spending on that. I mean, you get the people calling you and saying, oh, but ours is this print ad, and we have 80,000 readers, and you should, spend $4,000 for a quarter-page ad with us. But those 80,000 readers or subscribers, are they looking for your product? Mm-hmm. Are they clicking on yours? Do you find a link, and how do you even track that anymore? I mean, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, before your guys' time in this business, probably, it was nice because you had the trade magazines, and they would have the little card, and you do the circle number 24, and you'd mail it in, and they'd send you back the request, and you'd say, oh, you had 30 leads generated. They all want catalogs from you or information on your product. So at least you knew you could see it. Now with the advertising, it's kind of hard to see unless you're able to kind of track clicks on your website. But we're not selling our business. We're not selling off our website. Mm-hmm. So it's really, we're not even really pushing that traffic. It's kind of a direction we have to go.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would probably say, maybe a mistake that we made early on was we were probably a little late in hiring a salesperson, really dedicated sales. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to do that myself, somewhat ineffectively, trying to cover such a large territory. But it really made a difference when we had a dedicated person either working with agents in the field, traveling the country. It just gave me the extra set of hands that I could say, I'm not a salesperson by trade. I can focus on the operations. I can focus on overseeing manufacturing. Here's somebody that's dedicated 24/7 for us that can be shepherding sales and making decisions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's easy when you're starting to try and wear as many hats as you can, and you realize some things are a full-time job, and it's just not possible.
It is, and as any startup company, you tend to be on a shoestring budget, and you're always saying, where can I best put this money? And if you put in a salesperson, and then it's got the title of national salesperson, it very quickly can be a very expensive process because you've got not only salary benefits, but travel, automobile, expense account, and that's intimidating because you can look at that and say, that's a very large chunk of money. What else can I do with that money? Mm-hmm. Do I buy more manufacturing equipment? It becomes chicken and the egg because you might be able to manufacture, but if nobody can get the message out for you.
Right.
But if you're getting the message out there, but you have nothing to sell them, that's also not fun.
It's a balancing act.
It is. It's a lot of balancing acts, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges sitting there saying, okay, I have so many resources, be it capital, be it personnel, be it inventory. Where am I going to be most effective applying that? And it's an ongoing battle. You're constantly thinking and rethinking about that.
So it's kind of a good transition into the next question. Being in such a, you touched on it a few times earlier, being in this industry that you can't just put an ad on the radio, it's a niche thing. It's not like everyone's buying this,
Right.
What's your customer acquisition strategy like? And,
we do trade shows it's almost like, at the very least, people get used to seeing us. They see the name, they see the logo, they see the people, maybe at the show. That brings in some of the business. Honestly, a lot of it's old school. It relies on us through our sales force, and then we've got independent agents that represent our line along with maybe 5 or 6 others, knocking on doors, creating the awareness, going into customers and saying, okay, I know you've got other people selling you abrasives. This is what's different about Wendt, and this is what we try to, create that image, that awareness. And And it's successful. I mean, it's successful for us because we've got a number of kind of niche products that we sell, that we market, that a lot of people don't have and aren't able to bring in, and it kind of opens people's eyes. We also hand out a tremendous amount of free samples whenever customers ask, because we know that our competitors may rely on print ad or website ad saying, well, we're 45% more productive. Anybody can skew numbers. I never put any stock in those numbers. You can change the results. You can manipulate data however you want to do it. So for us, we prefer put the products in the customer's hand, let them use it, let them try it themselves, and let them see the difference, because that to me is more effective than any campaign that I can put together or to try to convince them ours is better.
Yeah, I mean, with all the new technology out nowadays, it's interesting that, I mean, some of the old school stuff is still the best
Yes.
for selling, and like there's some things that you just can't replace with all this cool automation technology and, you know, new email social selling, and like some things just can't be replicated on there.
We operate in a very conservative industry.
Yeah.
Metalworking. So there's new technology in cutting and welding and processes like that, and there's, you know, equipment that you can buy that costs a fortune. But ultimately, the people using the products are old school,
Yeah.
and they're not searching for our type of product on the web.
Right.
A consumer might be, but not an operator. That's changing, and we're trying to adapt to that now through like video clips, you know, very brief ones, so people can click on the website and say, oh, that's how that works. That's
Right.
how it performs.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and know your market. You guys seem like you know your market.
we've been doing it a few years.
Good. So why did you choose to build your business in Buffalo here?
We selected Buffalo, very self-serving. I've grown up and lived in Buffalo. So I began here. It was when we opened up, the United States, Canada was our oyster, and we could pick wherever we wanted to go, simply because I was going to be heading it up. So it was left up to me to make the decision. I knew that it was the cost of living and operations in Buffalo is affordable. It can be done very low key versus some of the bigger markets. We don't rely on the technology, maybe in other areas, and some of the trendy things. It's industrial products. Being in LA would have no benefit, for instance, things like that. Also, very importantly for us at the time was, as I said, our office here in Buffalo is responsible for the United States and Canada. So it puts us right on the border, a nice springboard right into the Ontario, Quebec market, where most of the manufacturing is done. And thirdly, we found it was at the early years very affordable to bring product in, importing through Canada and clearing at the Peace Bridge versus trying to bring through New York City, where the operating costs were just tremendously much more adding to it. So there were a lot of little factors that kind of came together that kind of just said, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Strategically, we're up in kind of the corner of the country, so shipping can be a challenge to the West Coast, but at least it hasn't been that big of a problem for us. I mean, as long as people know the lead time and what to expect, they generally can work with it.
Okay. Are your German friends over there, do they come to Buffalo to visit ever?
Yes, they do, and it's funny because they'll come generally once a year at least, just kind of, we'll have meetings and what have you, and they are just always amazed at what's happening and how much it's changed in the city, the region, how much it's growing. Where we're located downtown, in 6-8 months, they can show up and say, wow, that building wasn't even there, or that was just a shell, and look what's happened. So, sometimes we miss it from the outside, how quickly the changes that are occurring to our region. But for a visitor that's coming in just once a year or twice a year, they notice these changes.
Where do you take them for chicken wings then? I gotta know, it's a selfish question, I know.
Oh, that's always a debate. We'll always begin, first time, we'll go to the Anchor Bar. And we'll say, this is where it begins.
Gotta get the history.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it, I mean, at first I have to admit that people in Germany did not believe that buffalo wings originated in Buffalo.
Really?
They thought it was a marketing pitch. We said,
Yeah.
no, it actually was here, and this we can take you to what's kind of recognized as a founding place. Once they've acquired that taste for it and say, okay, we've been there, now we'll try some of the other ones around town to say, you know, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So the Duffs, the Mamosers, places like that, and kind of experiment and see.
Now I'm hungry again.
By the way, I've also got them now starting to get them hooked into American football. So
Okay.
yeah, we've had some good banter throughout the playoffs, and they're watching with the 6-hour time difference now. So there's a few colleagues over there that have become Bills fans just because of our presence here. So
Very good.
Always
Very
we're
good.
Bills
we're
fans.
spreading that around the globe.
Yeah, awesome.
Bills Mafia is everywhere. Great.
So on a final note, I mean, you guys have been so successful. Anyone aspiring to be, you know, a business owner or just getting started would, you know, be stupid not to look up to you guys and what you've done. So is there a piece of advice that you can give, one piece of advice maybe, that you would say that you'd give to somebody like that?
You know, what I would say is for somebody that's starting a new business, starting an operation, the one common that I think everybody can appreciate is, you know, and I don't want to sound like the lotto commission, but know your limits and play within it. Know what your limitations are. Don't try to be something that you're not. We've had many opportunities where, you know, people would come to us and say, oh, here's business that you're selling 10,000 pieces a year. We want to give you 250,000 units a year. Don't you want to take that? And your first reaction is, oh yeah, that would be great. Let's, you know, we want a part of this business. That is incredible growth. Then when you start looking at the numbers and you say, wait a minute, if I do that, what's it going to cost in resources to support that? What are the profits that are going to come out of that? Because if it's a very high volume, the price tends to be, you know, beaten up pretty low on the manufacturing side where it's at a lower margin. Those are two parts of it. But then we began to look and say, okay, what will that do to our overall production capacity? How is that going to affect our existing customers that maybe have been buying from us for 10 years, that have been our loyal long-term customers, where we take on an opportunity like this and essentially it can crush you because you can be overwhelmed in the amount of manpower that you need to support that type of account, maybe the special handling that goes into it, and then suddenly you're not able to support what's been your bread and butter business because you kind of leapt off the cliff thinking this is the you know, the magic jewel that I'm going to catch, and sometimes those are dangerous, you know, because you find out that you've bitten off more than you can chew, and now nobody's happy. The new customer's not happy because you're not able to support them. Your existing customers, you're not able to support anymore, so you're not doing anybody a service. And if anything, you've kind of created this now negative impression of your company.
Yeah. And it's hard to change that once it's out there.
Those impressions, exactly,
Last forever.
are tough. They are lasting. So, you know, you have to be aware of that, and you have to look forward and say, okay, if I do this, what are the ramifications? What are the risks for this? Not only business risk, but in reputation. Is this going to create a problem or challenge that we've never, you know, thought of?
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. Thanks, Jim. That was awesome. For everyone watching, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. If you know somebody in a traditional industry with an interesting story, tag them below. We'll get them on as a guest. See you next time.